Roy here. I thought I'd pop in to wrap up my Garbaugust and to talk about what I read for the final week of that event, which was a month celebrating and enjoying fiction that is called by some trashy, okay? So the sort of undemanding, non-literary fare that is only offering enjoyment, and hopefully that's what it's delivered. So nothing to do with reading bad books, although one or two crept in. It's to do with that end of things, and so that had prompts. Should say it's an event created by Criminoli with a fantastic group of co-hosts, and I was one of them, which is fantastic. Right, yes, prompts, won't go through them all, now it's finished, but the last one was Apocalyptic Trash. So we're looking at, in line with the overall theme of the event, which this time was Don't Panic, Read Trash, as a kind of double bluff, the kind of work that has apocalypse of some sort in it, which I could have done last year. Last year I tried to have a strand of like Victorian and 19th century work, and one of the things I read was The Last Days of Pompeii by Edward Bulwer-Lytton, which was great. But this year I read all modern stuff, starting with the novelisation of the movie Barbed Wire. So there's, as well as weekly prompts, there's a bingo card, and I was trying to do all the squares. Novelisation or tie-in is one of them. So Barbed Wire. I've never seen the film. I've never read the comic book it was based on. I never really watched Baywatch or knew much about Pamela Anderson, who is the star of the movie. So I was kind of going in purely focusing on the book as a sort of text and seeing what I got out of it. And realised quite soon, somebody had told me, I think, in a comment when I did a TBR video, that it's based on, also based on Casablanca, the movie Casablanca. So there's a lot feeding into this book, you know, the movie, it's comic books, Casablanca, the public image of Pamela Anderson, and the sort of genres it's kind of channeling. You know, it's a little bit cyberpunk, it's a bit dystopian, but yeah, and never seen Casablanca, but it's the sort of movie you kind of know it, even if you've never seen it. I mean, you know it from parodies and things as well. So that was quite fun. And I thought it was pretty good, just reading it, and of course imagining like the best movie imaginable. Because, you know, the images in my head have got infinite budget and none of the sort of problems that might have beset the movie. It was pretty good as a sort of rather over-the-top dystopian read. I think, now, again, I don't know what's in the film. In the book, there are flashbacks that give sort of context to what's happening in the story. And I'm not sure, I think some of those, maybe all of them, are in the film. What probably isn't in the film is like documents, so it's punctuated in the book with things like news reports and excerpts from academic articles and interviews with people, like after the fact, so even further in the future. I think this is set in 2017. So this is like early 90s, so that far future, 2017. Even more in the future, somebody's retrospectively recording this life in this demilitarised zone and stuff to do with this civil war that's going on in America, like the ruins of America. So that's gives a lot of extra depth, really, and then it's done pretty well. I'd say the problem with action movies turned into books is that descriptions of like big long fights and so on, especially the kind where you sort of know how they're going to play out, sort of, we know the main baddie isn't dead, he's going to come back, oh yeah, here he is. Stuff like that gets pretty tedious, but the rest of it, okay. Am I going to watch the movie? Probably not. I did go to the library to see if they had Pamela Anderson's autobiography, which they did, between Alexander the Great and Maya Angelou, appropriately enough. And she talks a bit about the making of this movie, which sounds like a hellish experience for her. So, I'm surprised that the thing got made at all, really. So, barbed wire, that was one. Then I read, to hit the prompt for sequel nobody asked for, Zoo 2 by James Patterson and one of his munchkins. So Zoo was a group read for the event. Read that. It's a story which, again, this is pretty apocalyptic. All animals go mad and want to attack humans all the time. So as well as there's like scary bitey animals like lions, it's also like, dolphins are sinking ships and birds are crashing aeroplanes, and the whole world goes to hell with a maverick scientist who kind of has theories about what it's all about. And first of all, nobody listens to him, and then it's like, get on the plane, you're meeting the president, lead a task force. So Zoo was pretty terribly written, but it's quite fun. Zoo 2 is really a series of action scenes stitched together by a skimpy plot, and I'd say it barely qualifies as a novel, really. So here's one where I was reading it. I mean, it's short. It's a kind of a novella, so it didn't really matter. By the time I'd come to that conclusion, it was nearly over. What's weird is, a bit like eating candy floss, I actually think if there were a Zoo 3, I would want to read it. I want to know what happens. Oh yeah, so also in Zoo 2, the new threat is some humans are getting the go mad and attack everybody disease, and then at the very end another order of fauna. Oh god. So did that. That definitely was a sequel nobody asked for. Anyway. And novel by a celebrity. I had a DNF'd Bonfire, Kristen Ritter's Bonfire, down on her allotment. So I needed to find something. Wesley Snipes' Talon of God, written with a guy called Ray Norman. So here you have some kind of super potent drug is hitting the streets in Chicago, and the pushers are virtually like giving it away. And so people are taking it, and it's basically turning them into demons. And there's a whole nefarious plot that's to do with bringing like literal hell on earth. That's pretty apocalyptic. So our heroes are a young woman who's a doctor, who's obviously trying to sort of fix people, and and they discover like this drug has got sulfur in it, and it's like brimstone. And her ex-boyfriend, who's a cop, and this guy called Talon, who's a sword-wielding warrior of God, talks in Bible. So the other two are like atheists, completely skeptical about anything religious, although as time goes on they just cannot maintain that skepticism. And I'd have to say the sort of theology of it, the discussions they have about, well, how can this work, and what does faith mean, and that sort of thing, are actually done in quite a sort of adult way. there's a little bit of a nod towards actually all the religions are quite good. You know, sort of all the Abrahamic religions are sort of implied to be on the right side. But basically it's a Judeo-Christian set up with angels and demons and that kind of thing. And the unwise work that's going on to breach the barrier so that hell can reign. It's more fun at the sort of figuring out what's going on stage. You know, once we know what's going on, it gets a bit like, well, there's battles and chases and jeopardy, and then it concludes. Set up in a way that could be a sequel, but it was fine. It was fine as this kind of pure entertainment read. So yeah, I've enjoyed this August. Just looking back, I think the books I most enjoyed were the non-fiction reads. So celebrity memoir, Fay Ray, that was a great book. On the other hand, because of King Kong and his giant hand. A great woman who is remarkably okay with the fact that she's like super famous for one film, even though she was in over 70. Yeah, it's really well written and lots of insight into Hollywood, so that was good. And also in the movie world, Dolls, Dolls, Dolls. A book about Valley of the Dolls, the book, the movie, the phenomenon. That was really good as well, and it kind of cemented my love for that film and book. So yeah, good stuff there. Also really enjoyed the Cozy Cat Mystery. So the second in the Cat Who series by Lillian Jackson Brown or Braun. Cat Who Ate Danish Modern. Really, really, really nice. Really pleasurable. A discovery was Hank Janssen crime books. Never read those before, and given that there's loads of them, that's going to be a sort of something I might go back to. Let's see, what else was there? I think there were a couple of books where I was getting the desired effect, which I'd sort of describe as freewheeling. You know, you're reading something, it's good enough to keep turning the pages, but it's not going to rock your world or question your, question existence or whatever. You're just reading the plot, see what happens. So like Scorpion by Mike Lineker, killer animal book, was very much like that. So much older was the Edgar Wallace Angel of Terror, one of his many thrillers. So good stuff. There's things I've sort of read and enjoyed at the time. I wouldn't read any more, really. I wouldn't read another Jilly Cooper. I've decided to ditch middle grade and young adult, just on the basis of like, how worthwhile is it to be reading those, with a couple of exceptions. I don't think I'll ever turn my back on Sweet Valley High. So yeah, Garbaugust finished for another year. Really good fun. So great, big thanks to Criminally for putting it all together, and to all the other hosts for their amazing content and for the ideas we shared behind the scenes, and just for a super fun time. Okay, I'll be back soon with something else.